Thank you so much, Claudio, and thank you for being here, but also thank you for the incredibly important work that you do all year round and for sharing that with us. I'm going to switch back into German now. We're going to talk about something completely different, but also very important. Und zwar geht es jetzt weiter hier auf der Bühne mit dem Thema Pflegenotstand. Ein Thema, was wir in den nicht nur letzten Jahren während der Corona-Pandemie, sondern auch schon davor lange besprochen haben.
Jetzt geht es wieder um die Pandemie oder beziehungsweise ein Thema, das wir... This is a topic that we've been discussing even before the pandemic. I'm happy to now welcome Ricardo Lange on our stage. He was invited to the German press conference a while ago, where he was talking about the daily life in the work in a German caregiver. And I'm very happy to have him here now.
Willkommen.
Hallo.
Schön, dass du...
Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Ricardo, I thought let's start like this. We've been talking for years now, or we had a track that was called ReHealth that was about digitalization in hospitals, in caregivers. So let's do a bit of a thought experiment. I'm going to read you something. This is a little scenario about the future that could show the daily life in the future in that we, coming from our digital world, cannot imagine even. And you can tell me if this is something you would consider desirable or not. So now just imagine the caregiving situation in the future. We have an older lady, maybe 90. Let's call her Mrs. Helm. She's living in a home where she gets help and she's incontinent. It's at night, maybe in the morning, and her smart diaper is telling her, okay, I'm wet, you need some help, and then a caregiving robot is gonna come over and ask her if she wants some assistance. She says yes, and the robot will now assist her with the assistance of her smart bed, the smart diaper, and then she can continue to sleep. The next morning, she, by herself, with her exoskeleton, is able to walk into the bathroom to wash, and then the robot helps her getting dressed, gives her coffee, and then there's a human caregiver coming, is having a little chat with her, how she is, and supports her while she drinks her coffee. And the nurse then checks all the sensors, looks at the data of Mrs. Helm. She's again by herself with the skeleton, walks to the breakfast, and the robot is cleaning the room. Okay, so this is my view of the future. And now, Ricardo, tell me, please, how far off is this from the reality that you see now? Is there some help that you already get, that you or the people are getting already? And is this something desirable for the future? To be honest, this sounds very technical, and I'm not quite sure that anyone who, faced with the question, if I want to have my diaper changed when it's full, gonna answer no, because those people are basically dead already. But to be honest, this sounds very technical, and this is not everything. It's not... Humans don't want to be treated like robots themselves and by robots, and they want to be treated like humans, and they're lonely. They want to have someone giving them some solace. In all of this, I don't think a robot has a big role. But this is the whole idea that in the nursing situation, robots could give them more time in order to have more resources for the human contact. And is there something that you can see that they take away some of the physical work that you have to do? For example, with smarter appliances, with I think something that makes them more self-reliant, like an exoskeleton, sounds very, very good. But there are already some little utilities that you can use for very overweight people, and we need more staff, which we don't have. And what stuff that makes our life easier, for example, digitalization, that's already there, that we don't have to have the chart for the patient done on paper and pen, but rather digital. And to be honest, we need a lot more subject matter experts, and that's not something we have. We don't have the expertise. We can now just fill in the form on a computer, and that's already a little bit help. You can do a lot of you have there's a lot of bureaucracy involved. You have to say if you shaved them wet or dry, and if you consider this with other jobs like a brick builder, you're not going to ask did you do it like this or like that. We need to reduce all this bureaucracy, and then you don't need all this digitalization because your job would be much easier. So this is a key aspect that you're seeing is you need maybe you don't need the system. Maybe with the documentation that would help, but it's great that there are already digital processes. We were rather surprised at the beginning of the pandemic that it was still so paper bound, the whole process, especially in nursing homes and hospitals. Obviously, this is a longer process and it's going to cost a lot of money. And since the nursing sector or the medical sector is always geared towards making profit, this is always going to be an issue. It's obviously very costly, just the maintenance and the old care, the elderly care, the hospital, all of this has to give you money. And every one of those institutions is incentivized to make as much money as they can from the suffering of the people, and obviously they're not going to invest a lot of money in these kind of things. And you already have way too much to do all the time, so it's probably a bit of an issue to skill up while you're working. And is this something that you see your colleagues doing? Is there some training that is available for you? What's the daily situation for you? Obviously, it would be very desirable if it is. We're actually required to skill up, but the main issue is time and the lack of skilled resources. Because whenever we have someone new that we need to help get started doing work, they should take months to get up to speed, but you only have 1 or 2 weeks because you're so short-staffed, and obviously it's all about time and money. So yeah, this is obviously an error in our ways of thinking that you might save both when you do digitalization. But what's your opinion on? We've already been discussing these topics for so many years, so we want to give you the stage in order to show us what is the point, where do we have to start, what is the real issue for the staff being so overworked, and that so many of the problems are basically on your shoulders now. And what is the support you need? How can we make your daily life easier? What do you need? Well, first and foremost, we need to get into a situation where the hospital is not a profit center anymore. There are definitely big stock listed companies. It's the same in the long-term care nursing situation. There are companies that buy these caregivers and then profit on the suffering of humans. And as long as that is the case, there will always be someone trying to get the maximum amount of money from people and from their sufferings. We're not just talking about the nurses, but also the cleaning staff, the doctor. They obviously get a lot of money, the doctors, but holding the hand of a dying person is not going to give them 1 cent. That's why that is also suffering the most. We're always talking about the salaries of staff, but it doesn't really matter because you get used to higher amounts of salary and you get used to that pretty quickly. But what you're not getting used to is the hours you have to work and the feeling of not doing right by the patients that you have. And thus, we actually just need more time. That is the main issue. Can't really say much more about that. Okay, so how do we get the pressure up for this to change? And I know people working in the nursing sector, and they're saying this pressure for efficiency, for more margin, for more money, and we're moving towards a situation. I know this from Great Britain, for example, for the zero-hour contract. And are we actually not just moving in the wrong direction? I'm not going to be very popular with my colleagues and with others in my sector, but we also need to start with ourselves. Every nursing person, whenever they say they're going to say yes, when they have to help out, when there's a lack, they're also responsible in trying to hide the problem within the nursing staff. If you go on strike, or if you don't work because something is wrong, then everybody's going to take notice. But right now, if the nursing staff is on strike, which is the case in one of the German states right now, then nothing's going to happen, because there's always someone who will just jump in and do the work for them, just because they're afraid that someone is suffering from that. And every one of the nursing staff has to take responsibility for themselves.
And only a person that's has enough energy, enough capacity to do a good job. Like if you're stressed out, if you're running low on energy, you can't go to the bathroom on time. You're not going to be able to have an empathetic relationship with your patients. And so I just have to stand up and say, me as a worker, this isn't my responsibility during my free time to just jump in and fill these blank spaces that are being left, because of it's really a job that politics needs to do.
Auch nehmen wir diesen.
All right, that one works. So I guess that's not easy, right? In your everyday life, it's you can't get out of that system. But you said you have to draw a line somewhere, right? In order for something to change. Yeah, but there is no change. Like the heads of the hospitals, the politicians, they don't give a shit if it's if the system takes it out on me, on our backs, on my colleagues' backs. The most important thing to them is to make money. Yeah, and so we have 2 minutes. Yeah, and so go ahead. Yeah, I think it's really blindsided politics by our health minister, Karl Lauterbach. We talk about COVID, we talk about monkeypox, and those are all important topics, but we talk about how do we handle big pandemics in the future. But for decades now, we've had this dire situation. Every year, 20,000 people die because of bacteria in hospitals, and it's 5 million people every year dying from that. And the politics doesn't care about that. And the big pharma companies, they also quit. And so really, it's all about profit. It's insane that people die in our hospitals because people on the top close their eyes and only think of profit. For example, a good friend of mine, he broke his leg. And after such an operation, you usually leave the hospital after 3 days. And he was in the hospital for 2 months. He had multiple operations, and in the end, they had to cut muscle tissue out of a different part of his body to save his leg. And really, I would wish from our federal health minister, Karl Lauterbach, who isn't here today, to really tackle these issues.
Wir wollen die letzten Minuten.
All right, we want to use the last minutes or seconds to use. You wrote a book, which is called Intense, when the exception becomes the norm. And you brought that with you today. Yeah, it's being sold somewhere over there. And yeah, so if you want to know more from Ricardo, you can go to the bookstall. You can buy it there, and you can get a signature from him. So thank you very much from our team at Republica, from our audience, to talk about these very important issues. So please give a big applause to Ricardo Lange. Thank you.